I casually told a customer that her baby's name was taken from an anime, not the meaningful origin her husband claimed. Now they're separating, and somehow I'm being accused of destroying a family. Can you imagine trying to make a friendly connection with a new parent, talking about something as innocent as their baby's name, only to accidentally rip open a web of deception so dark and twisted it involved a fabricated backstory, a chilling plot for custody, and your unsuspecting role in destroying a family? Because that's exactly what happened to me. I work at a daycare and honestly it's a pretty chill job. Part of our thing is building rapport with parents, you know? Finding common ground. Some parents I'd chat with about makeup, others about sports, whatever clicked. So when I saw the name Vrisa on a new enrollment form, I got instantly excited. Why? Because I'm a huge Homestuck fan and I recognized it. Immediately. The day came for pickup, and I finally met Vrisa's mom. She seemed really sweet, kind of bohemian with crystal jewelry and flowy skirts. I smiled a little too big probably and blurted out, "I have to tell you I love that you named your daughter Vrisa. Homestuck is such a great comic." She just stared at me. Complete confusion. What's Homestuck? My excitement died on the spot. My face felt like it was on fire. Oh, it's just this webcomic. One of the main characters is named Vrisa. Never mind, probably just a coincidence. I tried to laugh it off, but internally my brain was screaming. No way is this a coincidence. The name Vrisa didn't exist before Homestuck. Just didn't. She smiled warmly and started explaining. No, Vrisa is actually really meaningful. My husband came up with it. He told me he created it from the Sanskrit word Vishika, which means Scorpio. I'm really into astrology and crystals, and our daughter was born under Scorpio, so the name was perfect. I was nodding along politely, but inside my brain was an absolute madhouse. Because that was the exact backstory for the character Vrisa in Homestuck. Word for word. The character's name literally comes from Vishika, meaning Scorpio. She just kept going, telling me how touched she was because her husband usually thought astrology was completely stupid, rolled his eyes at Mercury retrograde. But for their daughter, he supposedly spent weeks researching, bought books on Vedic astrology, showed her multiple websites about Vishika, even created a whole binder of research on how he'd developed the name. I just stood there, smiling and nodding like an idiot, my mind reeling. This man had created an entire fake paper trail to convince his wife he'd invented an original name, when he'd really just named their kid after his anime waifu. I didn't say anything else that day. I went home and couldn't stop thinking about it. Part of me felt like maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut, but another part, a louder part, felt like she deserved to know. 3 days later, she was back at the daycare. She walked straight up to me, and her face, it wasn't angry, just exhausted and profoundly sad. Quietly, she said, "I need to withdraw Vrisa from the program. We're moving in with my parents." I asked if everything was okay. She took a deep breath. "I googled Vishika like you mentioned. Then I googled Vrisa Homestuck." She paused, her eyes watery. "Then I confronted my husband. When she showed him the evidence, he completely broke down and confessed. He wasn't just a casual fan, he was obsessed. Fan art saved on his computer, fan fiction he'd written. The whole thing. He'd been planning this for months before their daughter was even born. But here's what made my blood run cold. He told her he knew she'd eventually find out, but he'd researched the legal time limit for changing a baby's name. In our state, you have exactly 12 months to file with a simple form. After that, it requires court lawyers, compelling reasons. His plan was to wait it out. They'd been strictly isolating because of COVID, barely seeing anyone. He figured if he made it past that 12-month mark, she'd be stuck with the name, even after discovering the truth. Too expensive and complicated to change. She actually thanked me for exposing him. She said it wasn't about the name anymore. It was realizing the lengths he'd go to manipulate her. If he could do this with their daughter's name, what else could he lie about? When she left, I just sat there feeling numb. My coworkers started whispering. Within 2 weeks, I had 3,000 followers sharing their own stories on an anonymous Instagram account I'd made about weird baby names. Then a message popped up from someone claiming to be a therapist. She said 4 of her clients had separated after finding my account. But that wasn't why she was contacting me. One client, a father who'd been exposed, had spent their last session talking about me in a way that terrified her. She tried calling the police, but they said he hadn't made a direct threat. She was breaking confidentiality to warn me. I asked what he'd said. She started typing, stopped, started again. Then instead of text, she sent a voice memo. I pressed play. It was a recording from her session. A man's voice, calm, detailed, describing exactly how he'd been following me for 3 weeks, and what he was planning to do tomorrow. My hands shook so bad I almost dropped my phone. My legs literally felt like they were going to give out, and I had to sit on my couch. I played it again, trying to hear every word clearly, trying to catch some detail that would tell me if this was real or some kind of sick joke. But the second time through, something felt off. The man wasn't threatening me. He was crying. I've been sleeping in my car outside her apartment for 3 weeks. His voice cracked through my speakers. I just need someone to believe my side of this. My wife kicked me out, and she's using that daycare incident as proof I'm a liar in the custody filing. I'm not dangerous. I don't know what else to do. I can't afford a hotel. I can't go to my parents because they think I'm the bad guy too. I've been eating McDonald's dollar menu items and showering at the gym. And I just need someone to understand that I'm not the monster everyone thinks I am. The recording ended abruptly, like she'd stopped it mid-session. Before I could process what I just heard, another message came through from the therapist. I shouldn't have sent that. Please delete it. I'm his sister, and I'm terrified of what my sister-in-law will do if she finds out I warned you. She already threatened to report me to the licensing board once for talking to their couple's therapist behind her back. I could lose everything. Please just delete this and forget I contacted you. I stared at the message for like 5 full minutes. His sister. This therapist was related to the guy supposedly stalking me? None of this made any sense. The ethical violations alone were insane. I can prove my wife is lying about everything. Can we meet somewhere public? I have evidence. Please, I'm begging you. I should have blocked him immediately. I know that. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to delete the message and pretend I'd never seen it. But I was already in so deep, and honestly, I wanted to know what he meant by lying about everything. What evidence could he possibly have? I stared at the message for like an hour before I finally responded. I agreed to meet him at a busy park the next afternoon. The kind with joggers and families and people walking dogs. The kind where nothing bad could happen because there were too many witnesses. I got there early and positioned myself near a playground where there'd be tons of people around. I brought pepper spray in my jacket pocket. My finger was literally on the trigger the whole time. He showed up looking like he'd aged 10 years since the last time I'd seen him at pickup. Wrinkled shirt that might have been the same one he'd worn for days. Unshaven, but not in a trendy way. More like he'd forgotten what a razor was. Dark circles under his eyes so deep they looked like bruises. He was carrying a backpack that was stuffed full of something. He sat on the bench beside me but kept a respectful distance, like 3 feet at least. His hands were shaking. "Thank you for meeting me," he said. His voice was hoarse. "I know this is weird. I know you probably think I'm insane. I promise I'm not trying to scare you or anything. Your sister sent me a recording of you talking about following me," I said. No point in beating around the bush. He closed his eyes. "I know she shouldn't have done that. She's trying to help, but she doesn't understand how it looks." He took a breath. "I was venting in therapy about how this whole situation has destroyed my life. I wasn't actually following you. I was sleeping in my car outside my old apartment complex because I have nowhere else to go. And I was trying to see my daughter through the window. That's it. My wife got a restraining order, so I can't go within 500 feet of the house, but I can park on the street legally." "Okay," I said slowly, "but that's still kind of. I know how it sounds." "I know." He pulled out his phone, hands trembling so bad he almost dropped it. "But I need to show you something. My wife, before we got married, she had this Tumblr account. This is from 2014. He handed me his phone. On the screen was an old Tumblr post. The username had been deactivated, but the post was still visible through some archive site called the Wayback Machine. It was a long, rambling post about Homestuck characters and zodiac signs, and which trolls matched which astrological houses. Right at the bottom it said, "Okay, but if I ever have a Scorpio baby girl, I'm naming her Vrisa IDC IDC. That's literally the perfect name. and nobody can stop me. The post had like 3 notes. It was dated September 2014. I looked up at him. This is your wife's account? Yes. And look at these. He scrolled to show me screenshots of text messages between them from early in their relationship, back in 2015. They were talking about Homestuck, sending each other fan art, discussing their favorite characters. She'd sent him a message that said, "You know I'm still naming my future daughter Vrisa, right? You can't stop me, lol." He'd responded with, "Only if she's a Scorpio though." And she'd sent back a bunch of laughing emojis. There were dozens of messages like that. Screenshots of conversations about the comic, about the characters, about their theoretical future children. In one exchange from 2016, she'd sent him a link to a baby name site and said, "Look, Vrisa isn't on here yet. We could be the first ones." So she knew, I said. My voice sounded hollow. She knew exactly what the name meant. The whole thing was her idea from the beginning. When she got pregnant and we found out the due date would make the baby a Scorpio, she's the one who brought up the name. She told me to suggest it like I'd invented it because she thought it would be more meaningful that way. Like a romantic gesture. Like I'd done all this research just for her. He ran his hand through his hair, and I noticed it was greasy, unwashed. I went along with it because it seemed harmless. We both loved the comic. We both wanted the name. I had no idea she'd use it against me later. Why would she do this? His face crumpled like a piece of paper being crushed. Because she wanted out of the marriage, and she needed ammunition for custody. I'm not a bad father. I've never hurt anyone. I don't yell. I don't drink. I've never even gotten a speeding ticket. But I also don't make much money. I'm a substitute teacher. And she met this guy at her yoga studio who's a corporate lawyer. Makes like $300,000 a year. His voice cracked. Her lawyer told her the best way to get primary custody was to establish a pattern of dishonesty and manipulation, to make me look untrustworthy, to make the court think I'm the kind of person who'd lie about important things. I felt sick. She's moving to Vermont with Vrisa. I'll get one supervised weekend a month if I'm lucky. Do you know how expensive it is to fly to Vermont every month? I can't afford that. I'll basically never see my daughter grow up. I need you to testify, he said. Or at least show this evidence to her lawyer, to someone who can do something with it. Please. She's taking my daughter across the country based on a lie. I took screenshots of everything on my own phone. The Tumblr post, the text messages, all of it. My hands were shaking now too. Let me think about this, I said. He nodded and stood up. Thank you. Seriously, just thank you for listening. Nobody else will. Everyone thinks I'm the bad guy. Even my own family believes her because she's so good at crying on cue. After he left, I sat on that bench until the sun started setting and the park lights came on. Families packed up their picnic blankets. Joggers finished their routes. The playground emptied out. I just sat there staring at my phone, reading those old text messages over and over. Finally, I called Vrisa's mom. She answered on the first ring like she'd been waiting. Have you reconsidered signing the statement? I saw your old Tumblr, I said. From 2014. The post about naming your Scorpio baby Vrisa. Silence on the other end. Not the kind of silence where someone's thinking. The kind where someone's calculating. Your husband showed me the text messages too from when you were dating. You knew exactly what the name meant. You planned it together. It was your idea. More silence. Then, that was a decade ago. I barely remembered that post. When my husband suggested Vrisa, I genuinely thought he'd created it like he claimed. I didn't make the connection to something I posted years earlier. But the text messages from when you were dating? People say a lot of things when they're young. We talked about a million hypothetical baby names. I don't remember every conversation we ever had. Her voice was sharp now, defensive. The betrayal is that he let me believe a lie instead of reminding me of my own forgotten post. He could have said, "Remember that name you loved from the comic?" But he didn't. He pretended it was this original creation just for me. That's manipulation. That's not what he told me. He said you asked him to. Of course that's what he told you. He's trying to save himself. And honestly, are you really going to help my husband keep access to our daughter based on what I posted as a 22-year-old? Are you really going to take his word over mine? I'm going to testify about what I found if I get subpoenaed. The court should know the full story. They should see all the evidence and make their own decision. She laughed. It wasn't a nice sound. It was cold and sharp and made my skin crawl. Testify. Sure. Hey, where are you working these days? What? I'm just curious. Are you still at Little Sprouts Daycare? Or did you move on to somewhere new? I didn't answer. Because I already filed complaints with their corporate office this morning. About your Instagram account. About how you've been posting pictures of enrolled children without parental consent. For other mothers from your followers reached out to me after I posted in a local mom group, asking if anyone recognized the kids in your photos. They said you posted about their children without permission. The corporate office is very interested in investigating. They called me an hour ago to get more details. She paused. But I could tell them it was all a misunderstanding. That those moms are overreacting. That I reviewed the photos more carefully, and actually don't think my daughter is identifiable. If you wanted me to. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Are you seriously threatening my job right now? I'm not threatening anything. I'm just explaining the situation. You seem like a smart person. I'm sure you'll make the right choice. She hung up. I sat in my car in the parking lot for probably an hour, just staring at the steering wheel. My phone kept buzzing with texts from my roommate asking where I was, if I was okay, if I wanted her to save me leftovers from dinner. I ignored all of them. Finally, I Googled the husband's lawyer's office, found their website, called the main number, even though it was after hours. Got an answering service and left a message saying I had evidence that might help their case. I left my name and number and hung up. The lawyer called me back at 8 o'clock in the morning the next day. I was still in bed, having barely slept. I answered on the first ring. I explained who I was and what I'd seen. I sent her all the screenshots, the Tumblr posts, the text messages, everything. She was quiet for a long time while she reviewed them. I could hear her clicking through the files, zooming in probably. Finally she spoke. This is interesting, she said. Her tone was careful, measured, like she was choosing every word. But I need to be honest with you about what this actually proves, legally speaking. Proves she lied. Proves she knew about the name the whole time. Proves she posted about the name 10 years ago. Proves they discussed it while dating. That's it, she sighed. I could hear papers rustling in the background. The mother can claim she genuinely forgot about that old post. Memory fades. She can say that when her husband suggested the name years later, she didn't make the connection. A judge is more likely to believe a mother who says she felt deceived than to side with the father based on decade-old social media that she may or may not have remembered. But that's insane. The text messages are right there. The text messages show they discussed the comic together years ago. That's it. It doesn't prove she remembered those specific conversations when their baby was born. It doesn't prove she was lying when she said she thought he'd created the name. Another pause. Look, your testimony would be marginally helpful at best. It might plant some doubt, but it's not the smoking gun you think it is. My chest felt tight. So there's nothing that can help him. And I need to ask, are you prepared to be torn apart on cross-examination? Because opposing counsel will absolutely grill you. They'll ask about your Instagram account. They'll ask why you initially exposed the husband but now you're defending him. They'll imply he manipulated you or coached you. They'll make it look like you're changing your story to help a man you barely know. She let that sink in. Your credibility will be destroyed. And even after all that, the evidence still might not be enough to change the custody outcome. I felt sick. So I'd be risking everything for nothing. I'm not going to call you as a witness. The risk outweighs the benefit, both for you and for my client. If you're subpoenaed by opposing counsel, we'll deal with that then. But I'm not putting you on the stand voluntarily. She softened a bit. I'm sorry. I know you're trying to help, but this is the reality of family court. After I hung up, I just sat there in the dark bedroom. My roommate knocked on the door asking if I wanted breakfast. I said no. My phone rang again an hour later. Reese's mom. I heard you contacted his lawyer, she said. Her voice was friendly now, warm, like we were old friends catching up. I appreciate that you're trying to stay neutral. That's very professional of you. Very mature. How did you know I called them? His sister told me. We're actually on good terms, believe it or not. She thinks I'm doing the right thing. She knows her brother has issues with honesty. She's the one who suggested he start therapy in the first place. A pause. Hey, I've been thinking about our first conversation at the daycare that first day. Do you remember exactly how it started? Like, who brought up Homestuck first? My mind went blank. I tried to replay the conversation, but it felt fuzzy now, like trying to remember a dream. I did. I saw her name on the enrollment and got excited. I mentioned it when you picked her up. Are you sure? 'Cause I remember it differently. I think I might have mentioned being interested in webcomics, and you suggested Homestuck. Or maybe I asked if the name reminded you of anything. No, I definitely brought it up first. I remember because I felt awkward afterward. Memory is funny like that. We both remember it differently. She sounded thoughtful, philosophical almost. Our brains fill in gaps, create narratives that make sense to us. Sometimes what we remember isn't exactly what happened. I know what I said. Of course. I'm not arguing with you. She was quiet for a second. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you again for everything you've done. This whole process has been so hard, and you've been a real help. Sleep well. She hung up. I sat there trying to replay that first conversation in my head. I'd walked up to her at pickup, right? Or had she approached me? I'd said something about loving the name. I was sure of that. But had she prompted me somehow, asked me if I recognized it? The more I tried to remember exact words, the less certain I became. It was like the memory was dissolving the more I focused on it. The next morning I couldn't focus at work. During nap time, I told my supervisor I needed to check something in the office. I went in and pulled out the filing cabinet where we keep enrollment paperwork. I found Reese's file. There was a section on the form for parent preferences on classroom assignment. Most parents left it blank or wrote something generic like, wherever there's space. But Reese's mom had filled it out. She'd requested my classroom specifically. In the reason for preference box, she'd written in neat handwriting, heard wonderful things about this teacher's enthusiasm and personal connection with families. Would love for our daughter to be in her class. My hand started shaking. I checked the enrollment date. March 15th. Then I pulled out my phone and scrolled back through my deleted Instagram posts that I'd saved in my photos before deactivating the account. I found the post I was looking for. March 1st, 2 weeks before Reese's enrollment. The post said, "Absolutely love when parents choose meaningful literary names for their kids. There's something so special about a child growing up knowing their name has significance and history behind it. It shows real thought and care. What are your favorite literary baby names?" I checked the followers list I'd saved. Scrolled through the usernames there. Crystal Lotus 22. Following my account since February 28th, 3 days before my post about literary names. The account was deactivated now, but I'd bet everything I owned that it belonged to Reese's mom. She'd been following me before we ever met. My supervisor knocked on the door, asking if I was okay. I said, "Yeah, just dealing with some paperwork." My voice sounded far away. I screenshotted everything. The enrollment form, the Instagram post, the followers list with the date. Then I texted all of it to Reese's mom. Just the screenshots, no message. She called immediately. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "What exactly do you think you've discovered?" she asked. No friendly tone now, just flat and cold. "You planned this," I said, my voice barely steady. "You found my Instagram, saw I was into Homestuck, and enrolled Reese in my classroom specifically because you knew I'd recognize the name and say something. And you manipulated me into exposing your husband. This whole thing was a setup from the beginning. I researched daycares in the area. I found your Instagram through the daycare's tagged photos. I saw you were enthusiastic and engaged with parents. I thought you seemed like a nice person who'd be good with my daughter." Her voice was completely calm. "That's not manipulation. That's due diligence as a parent. You knew exactly what would happen when I saw her name. I thought you might recognize it, sure. And if you did, that would be a nice conversation, a shared interest. That's what your daycare encourages, right? Building rapport through common ground." She paused. "I didn't force you to say anything. I didn't ask you to look up the name. You chose to do that. You chose to tell me what you found because you acted like you didn't know. You played dumb." Now she laughed for real this time. Full and genuine. "Okay. Yes. You want the truth? Fine. I knew exactly what would happen. I needed a credible witness to publicly expose the name's origin. Something that looked organic and unplanned. Something that didn't come from me because if it came from me, it would look like I was trying to manufacture evidence. Her voice was steady, matter of fact. I needed it to be discovered naturally by a neutral third party. And you gave me exactly that. You're actually admitting this? Why not? What are you going to do? Tell people you were manipulated? Go ahead. Tell everyone you got played by a mom with a crystal collection and a yoga membership. See how that makes you look. She was enjoying this. I could hear it in her voice. Tell the court you're recanting your original statement. See if they don't think my husband coached you. See if they don't think you're unstable or compromised or just looking for attention. You destroyed a family. I protected my daughter. There's a difference. Her voice hardened. You think I wanted to do this? You think I enjoyed creating an elaborate plan to document my husband's dishonesty? I've been planning to leave him for over a year, but he's not abusive. He's not neglectful. He's just boring and broke. And I found someone better. Someone who can provide for our daughter properly. So this was just about money. This was about giving my daughter the best life possible. To get primary custody when there's no abuse or addiction, I needed documented proof of character issues, dishonesty, manipulation, anything that made him look untrustworthy to a judge. She sounded almost proud. You think I cried to you about Sanskrit by accident? I practiced that confused act for weeks. The whole wounded wife routine. I knew exactly how to play it. You're insane. I'm practical and strategic. And you were perfect for what I needed. Young, enthusiastic, active on social media. The kind of person who'd post about an interesting name without thinking twice. She paused. You made it so easy. You practically wrote the evidence for me. I'm going to tell everyone what you did. Go ahead. Tell people you were manipulated into exposing a family secret. See how that narrative plays. Tell the court you're now defending the husband because he showed you some old Tumblr posts. See if they don't think he manipulated you right back. She wasn't even trying to hide her contempt anymore. You already did what I needed. Anything you do now just makes you look unstable or like you've been compromised. Either way, your credibility is shot. People will believe me, will they, though? Because from where I'm standing, you look like a daycare worker who violated confidentiality, posted about clients' children online without permission, and is now desperately trying to backtrack after realizing the consequences. She let that hang in the air. My lawyer already has your Instagram posts printed and filed as evidence. Your little crusade to expose baby names is part of the public record now. Very compelling to judges who care about privacy and boundaries. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. You set me up from the beginning. I created an opportunity and you took it. That's not the same thing. She sounded bored now. Look, I don't expect you to understand. You don't have kids. You don't know what it's like to do whatever it takes to protect your child's future. This isn't personal. You were just useful. Useful, I repeated. The Instagram post was perfect evidence, by the way. My lawyer printed it out in color. It's right there in the case file with your username visible. Very compelling visual for the judge. Really drives home the husband's dishonesty. She paused. I really do appreciate your help. Genuinely, you played your part beautifully. She hung up. I sat in that office for the rest of nap time. Just sat there, staring at the enrollment form with her handwriting on it. Heard wonderful things about this teacher's enthusiasm. Every word carefully chosen. Every detail planned. I reported my Instagram account myself that afternoon. Went through the process to delete every post manually, even though I'd already deactivated it. I wanted it gone. All of it. For the next 3 weeks I checked my mail obsessively. Every day I was terrified I'd find a subpoena, some official document demanding I appear in court, but nothing came. The custody hearing was scheduled for a Thursday. I called in sick to work that day. Told them I had food poisoning. Just stayed home in my apartment with my phone, refreshing Reddit, refreshing the court website like I'd somehow get live updates. I thought about texting the husband to ask how it went. But what would I even say? Sorry you're losing your daughter because I fell for your wife's manipulation? Sorry I was too stupid to see what was happening? That evening around 7 p.m., I got a text from an unknown number. Just 2 sentences. She told me at the hearing she picked your daycare on purpose. Said it right to my face, knowing I couldn't prove it. Thank you for trying. I stared at those words until they blurred. Then I looked up the court records online. Public information, anyone could access it. The ruling had been filed an hour ago. Primary physical custody awarded to mother. Permission to relocate to Vermont granted. Father granted supervised visitation 1 weekend per month, subject to review in 6 months. Mother permitted to choose supervisor for visits. I put my phone face down on the table and walked away. I still work at that daycare, but I've changed. I see things differently now. That whole experience left me with a chilling understanding of just how far some people will go, how cold and calculated they can be, especially when it comes to money and self-interest. It also taught me a hard lesson about trusting my gut, and about how easily even well-intentioned actions can be twisted and used against you. I was an unwitting pawn in a scheme that cost a father his daughter. And I can't help but wonder if Reese's mom was right. Did my memory of that first conversation really get fuzzy, or did she plant that doubt in my mind, just like she planted everything else? Have you ever found yourself in the middle of someone else's drama, completely by accident, and realized you were just a tool in their game? Or had a seemingly innocent interaction spiral into something you never could have imagined? I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this down in the comments.